In the book you talk about non-violence. What is it for you?
I like non-violence as a concept, and I don't like the words in it. And I noticed that in the later part of his life, Marshall often regretted having called it non-violent communication. And he called it non-violent communication because the first person to translate Gandhi used the word non-violent communication to translate ahimsa. And ahimsa is much bigger than non-violent communication. And I love to think of what I'm doing as being ahimsa, unconditional love. And not just the absence of violence. And it's difficult to interpret non-violent communication. You can interpret it as the absence of violence, which is not very interesting, and you can also interpret it as unconditional love. And I love to think of it in that way, that it's unconditional love, and that it means on my part total acceptance of whatever comes across my path, and it means on my part that I would try as far as I can not to be violent. And I don't succeed in doing that because I have a part of me which is very jackal, as they say in non-violent communication, and which likes biting people. So that's sad, but that's the truth of the issue. And I'm comforted there by one thing that Marshall's girlfriend said to him once when I was there. I was teaching with him. And she turned on him and said, "You are the worst jackal on the face of the earth." And I thought, oh, I feel less lonely. So, yeah. So many memories flood back at times like that when I'm thinking of how Marshall is with other people, how I am with other people, how I developed myself, how he developed himself. And it leads to a lot of joy and a lot of regret because I would like to have developed differently. I would like to have been a perfect giraffe. And I'm fortunate in seeing that I haven't met anybody yet who is a perfect giraffe. So it allows me to have permission not to be a perfect giraffe.
So this unconditional love, how do you practice it?
I like the word practice in English because practice means you try again and again and again. Like you practice tennis, you practice dancing, you practice your piano pieces. And I would say that's how I practice non-violent communication and unconditional love. It's by trying again and again and again, falling down, picking myself up, apologizing to somebody, knowing how it is for somebody to receive a curt remark and how painful it is. And I live in a lot of hope that despite my many years, I'll have enough years left to become less violent. I don't see myself as non-violent. I see myself as having an addiction, which is to be right. And if you have an addiction to be right, you're in for a lot of pain. Because being right is usually very violent. And I have committed violence in front of a lot of people. And I'm not at all proud about that. But when there are 60 people in a group and an important person in the group makes an important mistake in English and I correct it in front of the 60 people in the group, that's not a very friendly thing to do. And I try not to do that, but I did do it. I did regret it. I went into my addiction of being right. And that was not kind, and I think probably not helpful. But I couldn't see it as avoidable. If I knew how to say those two words in English and in French, and they were not being said, there was something in me which compelled me to come out, to go bright red, and to say in an angry voice, that's not the way to translate. Yes, so these are sad things that happen, and sad things that I did. and sad things that I hope not to do again in the same way. Yeah.
Why did you want to teach other people nonviolent communication? How does it help?
I think nonviolent communication helped me a great deal in accepting that people are what they are and not trying to change them to make them like they should be. Because if I made them, I would make them differently. And nonviolent communication taught me that it's a very unuseful activity to try to change anybody, and that the only person you can change, in fact, if you can change that person at all, is oneself. So it's been a very interesting path for me to be on, to try to be wondering in a relationship how I can change myself, rather than how I can change the other person. Of course, I do want everybody to be perfect, and I want them to be perfectly as I would make them. But the wisdom of nonviolent communication says, see what they're like, see what you're like, and see if you can make a relationship that works. But you can only make a relationship that works if the change comes into oneself rather than the desire to change the other person. And I think people are quite surprised to be with me and to realize that I don't want to change them. There is something in me, of course, that says, why don't they change? And then there's another voice that says, you know how illusory it is to even think of changing other people.
People who are in courses with you say how incredibly safe they feel with you and how they are shocked with your humility after everything that you have done, everything that you have seen.
And I find myself in tears when I hear you say that. I think I find myself in tears partly because I think it's not true and that I don't deserve that. And I think I'm in tears partly because it's just moving to think that people are interested in becoming, interested in developing, interested in changing, interested in contributing to a safer world. And I think one of the things that makes people feel safe in my company is that they can usually rely on me to be vulnerable if I'm speaking, and they can rely on me not to be critical of them. And I keep on trying, and sometimes I'm lucky and I succeed, and at other times I try and I don't succeed because impatience gets in the way. Some deep, deep aspiration that the world should change gets in the way. And then I can realize that I'm just a human being. And I say so often in the trainings that I give, that human beings only ever do one thing all their lives. They're doing their best. And so when I say that to myself, okay, Godfrey, that was a horrible mistake that you made there, but I know that you're doing your best. And then a smile can come to my face, and I can think, yes, I'm doing like any other human being. Whatever they're doing is doing their best. I think what nonviolent communication offers immediately to anybody who is willing to approach it, it offers depth instead of immediate judgments. You have the time with nonviolent communication to reflect about deep aspirations. What is meaningful to me in my life? What do I want to bring to this world? How do I wish to be seen? And once that happens, then the behaviors in human beings become different. Instead of telling people what they are, telling them truths about themselves that they have no wish to hear, you can talk to them about the needs that their company with you meets, the needs that you hope are met for them and that are met for you. And somebody who starts to behave in an organization like that usually comes away from it different. And when I was in NATO, I was learning nonviolent communication, and people didn't know that in my department. And they said to me, Godfrey, you've changed. Why have you changed? And then I told them that I think that it was nonviolent communication that brought about a significant change, which was less arrogance, and I see myself as somebody very arrogant, less pain in relationships with me, and all of that is ongoing. I don't think that any number of lives can make you a perfect communicator, and I think that certainly one life is far too little to become a perfect communicator. I think that the potential of nonviolent communication is infinite. I don't think it is especially designed for world conflict, but I think that what I notice is that when military people, like the people I've met and taught nonviolent communication to, they are interested. They are human beings. And the idea of shooting a plane down, the idea of dropping a bomb on a building full of people is not something that anybody does joyfully. And I think that a lot of people in the military who have been exposed to NVC want to behave differently.
So NVC can help to the social change?
Yeah. I'm sure that NVC can help people to see other people as human beings rather than as obstacles to be got rid of. It's a shame to think that another person can be simply an object to dispatch. Yeah, that's sad.